This past summer, I had the privilege of leading a pilgrimage to see the Passion Play that takes place every 10 years in Oberammergau, Germany. And it was a wonderful experience. The only downside to it was that it just so happened that we were flying on the only airline left in Europe that was requiring you to wear a mask for the entirety of the trip. Now, I'm in favor of masks. I wear them myself, especially in close quarters. I don't have a problem with that. But wearing one for 7.5 hours straight, pretty much, is a little much. It's hard to get used to. However, we all did it because we wanted to get to where we were going. The difficulty of the trip was worth the destination that we were aiming at. That is really and truly what the first reading is talking about when it speaks of entering into God's rest. The rest that the letter to the Hebrews is talking about, he explains it in two ways. He refers to the fact that in the book of Genesis, God rested on the seventh day, the Sabbath rest, after the creation of all of the world. And then he says that later on, the Israelites, because of their awkwardness and their sinfulness, were not immediately permitted to enter into God's rest in the promised land. So the Sabbath exodus and the Exodus, the Sabbath rest and the Exodus rest are the two rests that he's talking about. Well, what does it mean? It means that the difficulties of the journey are worth it, are necessary in order to experience the delights of the destination. And that, Hebrews tells us, is the metaphor for the entire Christian life. That yes, life can be hard, but that the small delights along the way are really presaging for us the eternal delights of reaching our destination, of entering into God's rest. Now, we have to be careful. That word rest can sound almost like doing nothing. It's not meant to suggest that. It's meant to suggest to us the completion of a period of preparation for which we now experience the fullness of what we have worked for. That's what God's rest is. It's not hanging around doing nothing. It's not getting bored because there's no activity. It's not dolce far niente. It's not hanging out in the mall for a few hours. It's really and truly the fulfillment of all that is delightful on earth. Our earthly experiences, no matter how good, are always tinged with some element of difficulty in one way or another. Perhaps the best way to think of God's rest is to think of those moments when we are able to forget about our cares and enter into a delightful experience. For some people, it might be reading a book or hearing some music. For other people, it might be hunting, or it might be passing time doing their favorite hobby. Whatever it is, it's those moments of delight that prepare us and give us a foretaste of the complete delight of entering into God's rest. The biggest obstacle to that is sin. So when Jesus forgives the sin of the paralytic, he's both removing his physical malady, but also removing that taintedness about human life that impedes his experience of the delights of God's grace in this life. Let us pray that as we enter into the Eucharist, we may truly appreciate the depth of God's love for us and the offer of his grace that he gives us in the sacraments, in order that we may come to anticipate with joy entering into his rest.